Welcome to Astronomy Daily. I'm Anna, and it's time to dive into the fascinating universe of space exploration and astronomical discoveries. Today, we've got a packed episode that spans everything from regulatory victories to scientific breakthroughs and even a touch of nostalgia for space enthusiasts. In our cosmic journey today, we'll start with some significant news from SpaceX, which has just received crucial FAA approval to dramatically increase its Starship launch cadence from Texas. This regulatory green light could accelerate Elon Musk's ambitious Mars mission timeline and represents a major milestone for commercial spaceflight. Then we'll travel to India, where the country's space agency has announced plans for its first Human Spaceflight Mission, scheduled for early 2027. This development marks another step in India's rapidly expanding space program and reflects the growing global democratization of space exploration. We'll also examine how Stratolaunch has breathed new life into hypersonic flight testing, successfully flying and recovering a vehicle that reached speeds over Mach 5. This achievement represents the first time in 6 decades that anyone in the United States has flown a reusable hypersonic rocket plane since the iconic X-15 program. For astronomy enthusiasts, we've got exciting news from the James Webb Space Telescope, which has captured dramatic weather changes on a nearby pair of brown dwarfs. These observations provide unprecedented insights into these fascinating objects that bridge the gap between planets and stars. And finally, for those who appreciate the intersection of space history and creative building, we'll look at LEGO's newly announced shuttle carrier aircraft set. This detailed model recreates NASA's modified Boeing 747 jetliner and the prototype orbiter Enterprise as they appeared during their historic 1983 international tour. So buckle up as we launch into today's Space News Roundup. There's plenty to discover in the coming minutes as we explore the latest developments in our ongoing adventure to understand the cosmos. Kicking things off, SpaceX has just received a significant regulatory victory that will substantially boost its Starship program. On Tuesday, the Federal Aviation Administration granted the company approval to increase its annual Starship rocket launches from Texas from just 5 to an impressive 25 launches per year. This represents a 5-fold increase in potential launch capacity and marks a crucial step forward for Elon Musk's ambitious space exploration plans. After completing a years-long environmental review, the FAA determined that this dramatic expansion in launch frequency would not significantly impact the quality of the human environment surrounding SpaceX's Starbase facility in Boca Chica, Texas. The decision applies not only to the increased rocket launches, but also covers booster landings in various bodies of water and potential rocket explosions over the Gulf of Mexico and some international waters. This regulatory green light comes at a strategically important time for SpaceX, just days after residents living near Starbase voted to incorporate the area as a municipality. This local governance change gives SpaceX greater control over the sprawling site's growth and provides new powers concerning its launch operations. The incorporation vote reflects the complex relationship between SpaceX's rapid expansion and the local community that has developed around it. As a condition for increasing its launch activities, SpaceX must fulfill various community obligations to offset environmental impact. These include hosting quarterly beach cleanups, donating to environmental organizations, testing nearby water quality, and minimizing launch site lighting to avoid disruption to nesting sea turtles. The Starship rocket system, with its 171-foot-tall spacecraft sitting atop a 232-foot-tall Super Heavy booster, has already conducted 8 integrated test flights since 2023. Each launch has demonstrated progressive achievements, though some have ended in explosive mishaps that reflect SpaceX's risky but innovative test-to-failure development approach. Despite Tuesday's positive regulatory decision, SpaceX has not yet announced when it plans to conduct its next Starship test launch. The most recent 2 test flights ended with in-flight explosions, including one that rained debris over the Turks and Caicos Islands, where many residents reported it felt like an earthquake. This FAA approval represents a significant boost for a rocket program that's poised to play a key role in the future of the U.S. space program, particularly under the new presidential administration. With this regulatory hurdle cleared, SpaceX can accelerate its development timeline for a rocket system that's ultimately designed to carry humans to Mars. Next in today's news, In a major development for India's space ambitions, the country's space agency has announced plans to launch its first human spaceflight mission in early 2027. This announcement marks a significant milestone in India's growing presence as a global space power, coming after years of methodical preparation and technological development. The Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, plans to begin with an uncrewed orbital mission later this year as a critical stepping stone toward the human mission. According to Science and Technology Minister Jitendra Singh, it represents India's rise as a global space power. The mission, known as Gaganyan, which translates to spacecraft, is progressing on schedule with recovery trials already conducted with the Indian Navy and more sea recovery simulations planned. 4 Indian Air Force pilots have been selected as astronaut designates for the historic mission. These pilots have already completed specialized training in Russia and are now undergoing further mission-specific training in India. This comprehensive preparation underscores the meticulous approach ISRO is taking to ensure mission success and astronaut safety. What makes India's approach particularly notable is its ability to achieve significant space milestones at a fraction of the cost compared to established space powers. Last August, India became just the 4th nation after Russia, the United States, and China to successfully land an unmanned craft on the moon with its Chandrayaan-3 mission. Looking even further ahead, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has outlined an ambitious vision for India's space program, announcing plans to send an Indian to the moon by 2040. This long-term goal demonstrates India's commitment to establishing itself as a major player in space exploration for decades to come. Even before the 2027 Gaganyan mission, India is preparing to make history this month when astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla becomes the first Indian to visit the International Space Station and only the second Indian ever to reach orbit. Shukla, who is set to pilot the Axiom Mission 4 in a joint NASA-ISRO undertaking, is likely among the top candidates for ISRO's Gaganyan spaceflight program. This upcoming ISS mission comes 4 decades after India's Rakesh Sharma's historic spaceflight aboard a Russian spacecraft in 1984, highlighting just how far India's independent space capabilities have advanced since then. Through these carefully planned missions, India is establishing itself not just as a participant in space exploration, but increasingly as a leader in developing innovative, cost-effective approaches to reaching beyond Earth. Next on our news agenda, Stratolaunch has finally discovered a perfect application for the world's largest airplane, making significant progress in the field of hypersonic flight testing. Twice in recent months, the company successfully launched its Talon A2 vehicle over the Pacific Ocean, accelerated it to more than 5 times the speed of sound, and, most impressively, landed it autonomously at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. What's remarkable is that they used the same vehicle for both December and March flights, demonstrating the system's reusability. This achievement represents a historic milestone as the first time in 60 years that anyone in the United States has flown a reusable hypersonic rocket plane since the final flight of the iconic X-15 back in 1968. But whereas the X-15 required a human pilot, the Talon A flies completely autonomously. Zachary Crever, Stratolaunch's CEO, explained the significance of this autonomous capability. Hypersonic systems are now pushing the envelope in terms of maneuvering capability, maneuvering beyond what can be done by the human body. Being able to perform flights with an autonomous, reusable, hypersonic testbed ensures that these flights are exploring the full envelope of capability that represents what's occurring in hypersonic system development today. The Talon A, which is about half the size of the X-15 and a little smaller than a school bus, conducted these flights under contract with defense contractor Leidos as part of the Pentagon's Multi-Service Advanced Capability Hypersonics Test Bed program, known as Mach-TB. This program aims to dramatically increase America's hypersonic testing capabilities. George Rumford, director of the Test Resource Management Center, emphasized the importance of these tests. Demonstrating the reuse of fully recoverable hypersonic test vehicles is an important milestone. Lessons learned from this test campaign will help us reduce vehicle turnaround time from months down to weeks, he said. This progress is particularly important as the United States works to catch up with China, which U.S. officials acknowledge has become the world leader in hypersonic missile development. Hypersonic weapons fly at speeds exceeding Mach 5 and are significantly more difficult for aerial defense systems to detect, track, and destroy than conventional missiles. Unlike ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons ride at the top of the atmosphere, enhancing their maneuverability and ability to evade interceptors. The hypersonic flight environment is incredibly challenging, with temperatures outside the Talon A reaching up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it moves through the atmosphere. During its journey from release point to landing, the vehicle performed a series of high-G maneuvers, further demonstrating its capabilities. Stratolaunch is now building a second rocket plane, Talon A3, scheduled to enter service later this year. It will launch from a Boeing 747 carrier aircraft that Stratolaunch acquired from Virgin Orbit after its bankruptcy in 2023. The longer range of the 747 will allow the company to stage hypersonic tests from additional locations beyond the West Coast. With the Pentagon aiming to increase hypersonic flight tests from 12 to 50 per year, Stratolaunch's technology represents a crucial capability in America's efforts to advance hypersonic research and development. The company hopes to achieve monthly flights by the end of this year and eventually ramp up to weekly testing missions. Well, the JWST has done it again. The James Webb Space Telescope has given astronomers an unprecedented view into the atmospheres of a fascinating pair of brown dwarfs, providing what scientists are calling a weather report from our cosmic neighborhood. The objects in question are WISE, 1049 AB, also known as Lumen 16, which sit just 6.5 light years away from Earth, making them the closest and brightest brown dwarfs we know of. Brown dwarfs occupy a curious middle ground in astronomical classification, too massive to be considered planets, but not quite massive enough to sustain the hydrogen fusion that powers stars. This makes them extremely valuable for scientists trying to understand both exoplanet atmospheres and stellar dynamics. They essentially serve as perfect laboratories for studying atmospheric behavior in extreme environments. The new observations use the JWST's NIRSpec and MIRI instruments to monitor these brown dwarfs over an extended period, creating the longest baseline weather monitoring for any brown dwarf to date. What makes this study particularly groundbreaking is that researchers were able to observe wavelengths beyond 11 micrometers, reaching up to 14 micrometers, for the first time ever in brown dwarf research. This expanded wavelength range allowed scientists to capture both the upper and lower atmospheric layers of these objects, revealing dramatic weather patterns and the behavior of small silicate particles that form cloud layers in their atmospheres. The observations show striking light curve shapes in the deepest atmospheric layers, which researchers attribute to patchy cloud formations. Higher in the atmospheres, between wavelengths of 2.5 to 8.5 micrometers, the team identified hot spots caused by temperature and chemical variations of molecules like carbon monoxide and methane. Perhaps most intriguingly, they found evidence that small-grain silicates contribute to the atmospheric variability in one of the brown dwarfs, but not in its companion. Since brown dwarfs are fast rotators that complete rotations in just hours, these time-resolved studies allow astronomers to capture the inconsistencies in their atmospheres and understand the mechanisms driving these changes. The research team concluded that while different atmospheric layers are governed by different mechanisms, each variability mechanism remains consistent within its layer over the long term. This work represents a major step forward in our understanding of ultracool atmospheres and will help inform studies of exoplanet atmospheres, potentially aiding in the search for habitable worlds and possible biosignatures. Scientists plan to expand JWST variability surveys across more brown dwarfs to trace and understand these mechanisms across a wider population of objects. Finally today, something a little different. Space enthusiasts and LEGO builders alike have something extraordinary to look forward to this month as LEGO has unveiled its newest Icon set, a meticulously detailed recreation of NASA's 747 shuttle carrier aircraft with the prototype orbiter Enterprise perched atop. This impressive model captures the iconic duo exactly as they appeared during their historic 1983 International Goodwill Tour, which included memorable stops at the Paris Air Show and visits to Italy, England, Iceland, and Canada. The $229.99 building kit will first become available to LEGO Insiders Loyalty Club members on May 15th, with a wider release in LEGO stores across the United States and Europe following on May 18th. The release date is particularly fitting, coming just 42 years and 1 day after the real aircraft and orbiter first departed from Southern California to begin their tour. Comprised of 2,417 pieces, the assembled model is truly impressive in scale, measuring over 2 feet long with a wingspan of 21 inches and standing nearly 11 inches tall. LEGO has packed this set with authentic details and functional features, including retractable landing gear and the specialized mounting system that secured the shuttle to the aircraft's back. The Enterprise model itself includes several notable features such as an attachable tail cone, used to improve aerodynamics when flying atop the 747, detachable main engines, and landing gear that can be tucked inside its payload bay. LEGO has even included the distinctive 376 marking that was added to the 747 before its appearance at the Paris Air Show. For display purposes, the set comes with pieces to build a sturdy stand and information plaques highlighting facts about these historic vehicles. This isn't LEGO's first attempt at recreating this famous aircraft combination. A much simpler 342-piece version was released back in 1995. But the new Icons version represents an extraordinary leap forward in detail and accuracy. The shuttle carrier aircraft set joins LEGO's 2021 Space Shuttle Discovery in the Icons line, continuing the company's tradition of creating museum-quality models of NASA's most famous spacecraft for adult builders and collectors. That wraps up today's episode of Astronomy Daily. From SpaceX's expanded launch capabilities in Texas to India's ambitious plans for human spaceflight, from Stratolaunch's groundbreaking hypersonic test flights to Webb's fascinating observations of brown dwarf weather patterns, and finally to that spectacular LEGO recreation of NASA's shuttle carrier aircraft, we've traveled across the solar system and back with today's news. I want to thank you for joining me on this cosmic journey. I'm Anna, and it's been my pleasure to bring you these stories of human ingenuity and our ongoing exploration of the final frontier. If you're hungry for more space news between our episodes, visit our website at astronomydaily.io, where you'll find our constantly updating newsfeed with all the latest developments in space and astronomy. While you're there, you can also catch up on any episodes you might have missed in our complete archive. We're also very active across social media, so be sure to follow us for daily updates, amazing space images, and conversation with our community of fellow space enthusiasts. Just search for Astro Daily Pod on Facebook, X, YouTube, YouTube Music, Instagram, and TikTok. The universe is vast and constantly surprising us with new discoveries. Who knows what amazing stories we'll be sharing next time? Until then, this is Anna for Astronomy Daily, reminding you to keep looking up and keep wondering about the magnificent cosmos we call home.